The year is 1872, and the seas are rough. The winds blow violently through the rigging of the brigantine named Mary Celeste. The four-masted sailing ship pitches and rolls with the waves as it makes its way across the Atlantic. But there is no crew on board to be seen. There isn't a single soul anywhere on the deck, below deck, or even in the crow's nest. How did the Mary Celeste become a ghost ship? Let's find out in today's episode. On December 4th, 1872, the captain of the ship, Benjamin Briggs, his wife and 7 other men set sail from New York on the Mary Celeste. Their destination was Genoa, Italy, where they were going to pick up a load of wine to bring back to New York. The ship had been chartered by George W. Challen, a businessman who had invested in a new type of cargo hold that would allow the ship to carry more cargo. It was hoped that the trip would be profitable, and the crew was in good spirits as they left port. For the first few weeks, everything went well. The weather was good, and the ship was making good progress across the ocean. Then, on November, a storm hit. The wind and rain beat down on the Mary Celeste, and the waves grew larger and larger. For several days, the crew struggled to keep the ship on course. They battled with the elements, but eventually, they began to take on water. The pumps were unable to keep the ship afloat, and it became clear that they were in danger. Benjamin Briggs wrote in his diary, "We have now been in this latitude 8 days, and during that time we have not seen a calm moment. The gale continues to increase in violence, and we have had to run in stays and do everything to the ship to make her as snug as possible. The sea is breaking over our decks, and it is with great difficulty that we keep her under control." On December, the storm finally passed, and the crew of the Mary Celeste began to assess the damage. They had survived the worst of the storm, but now they had to deal with the consequences. The ship was badly damaged, and they had lost a large amount of their cargo. But the biggest shock was yet to come. When they began to search the ship, they realized that the captain, his wife, and one of the crew members were missing. They searched everywhere, but there was no sign of them. They checked the lifeboat, but it wasn't there. And they looked in the cabins, but they had disappeared without a trace. The remaining crew were stunned. They had no idea what had happened to the captain and his wife. They discussed the possibilities, but they couldn't come up with any answers. The only clue they had was the fact that the captain's diary had been left behind. This was strange because he never missed an entry. So why had he stopped writing? Had something happened to him? Or had he planned to leave the ship and had simply forgotten to take his diary with him? The crew were baffled, and so were the investigators who took over the case. The ship was found abandoned in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Portugal, and the nearest land was about 300 miles away. There were no signs of a struggle and no evidence of foul play. The cargo was intact, and the ship's log showed that the crew had been expecting rough weather, but nothing out of the ordinary. The ship was filled with supplies, and the crew could have easily stayed on board until they were rescued. The investigators had several theories about what could have happened to the crew. Perhaps they had all gone overboard in the storm. However, it seemed unlikely that such a large number of people would have been lost without leaving any trace. Another theory was that the crew had been attacked by pirates. However, there was no evidence of a struggle, and it was unlikely that pirates would have taken the time to sail the ship so far before abandoning it. A third theory was that the crew had deserted the ship. However, this seemed unlikely as well, since the ship was still full of supplies, and the crew would have been able to sell the cargo for a profit. The most popular theory was that the crew had been taken by sea monsters, based on the fact that the ship's lifeboat was missing, and it was speculated that the crew had been killed and dragged into the depths of the ocean by some unknown creature. However, there was no evidence to support this theory, and it remained just that, a theory. The case of the Mary Celeste remains a mystery to this day, and there have been many theories proposed over the years. Some believe that the crew was taken by pirates, while others think they were all lost at sea. Still, others believe that the crew was abducted by aliens. There's even a theory that the ship was cursed. In recent years, some have suggested that the ship may have been the victim of a crime. Perhaps the crew was murdered and their bodies dumped into the sea. This theory is supported by the fact that the ship was found with all of its supplies still on board. However, there is no evidence to support this claim, and it remains just a theory. Others have suggested that the crew may have been taken by sea monsters. This theory is based on the fact that the ship's lifeboat was missing, and it's possible that the crew was killed and dragged into the depths of the ocean by some unknown creature. However, there is no evidence to support this theory, and it remains just that, a theory. One of the most popular theories is that the crew of the Mary Celeste was taken by aliens. This theory is based on the fact that there is no logical explanation for what happened to the ship and its crew. Some believe that the crew was taken for study, and that their bodies were returned to the sea. However, there is no evidence to support this claim, and it remains just a theory. Another popular theory is that the ship was cursed. This theory is based on the fact that the ship was involved in several accidents and incidents before it was found abandoned. Some believe that the ship was cursed, and that the curse caused the crew to be taken by an unknown force. However, there is no evidence to support this claim, and it remains just a theory. The Mary Celeste is still a mystery to this day, and there are still many unanswered questions about what happened to the ship and its crew. While there are several theories, none of them can be proven, and the truth of what happened to the Mary Celeste and her crew may never be known. Throughout history, there have been many ships that have met with tragic fates, but few have captured the imagination of maritime historians and enthusiasts like the Mary Celeste. The story of the abandoned ship and her missing crew has inspired countless books, films, and television shows. One of the most famous books about the Mary Celeste is The Mystery of the Mary Celeste by Morgan Robertson. The book was first published in 1941 and tells the story of the ship and her crew from the time she set sail from New York until she was found abandoned at sea. Robertson's book is considered to be one of the best accounts of the Mary Celeste and is a must-read for anyone interested in the case. Another great book about the Mary Celeste is The Haunting of the Mary Celeste by Eric R. Eugen. Published in 2006, this book takes a different approach to the story and explores the possibility that the ship may have been haunted. O'Hanlon's book is full of interesting theories and is sure to keep readers guessing until the end. If you're looking for a film adaptation of the story of the Mary Celeste, then you might want to check out The Wreck of the Titan. The 1958 film is based on the same events that inspired the novel The Titan by Morgan Robertson. The film stars Ernest Borgnine and Lee Marvin as two ship captains who race against time to rescue the crew of a ship that's been lost at sea. Suspense and drama, and is sure to keep viewers on the edge of their seats. Another film adaptation of the Mary Celeste story is the 1979 film The Albatross. The film stars Anthony Hopkins and Peter Firth as two sailors who find a derelict ship at sea and then discover that it's haunted. The film is a mix of horror and drama and is sure to keep viewers guessing until the end. The Mary Celeste is a fascinating mystery that has captured the imagination of people for centuries. Whether you believe that the crew was taken by aliens, pirates, or sea monsters, or whether you think that the case is simply unsolved, one thing is certain: the story of the Mary Celeste is sure to keep you guessing until the end. What are your thoughts on the disappearance of the Mary Celeste and her crew? Do you think the crew was taken by aliens, pirates, or sea monsters? Or do you think the case is simply unsolved? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.